Heads up, I'm moving to Japan soon, so there may be a lapse in my videos that come out every now and then. So doing rough sketches, it can be a little bit tiring. There's a learning process to learning how to do a rough sketch. Sketching is like a whole skill on its own, and throughout my drawing career, I've slowly adopted different types of sketching styles, and the way you do that is just by watching other people draw and just saying like, oh, I really like that idea that they do. I'm gonna copy that, I'm gonna do that. But here are some pointers on just like how do you sketch better, demystifying this rough sketch concept. I have my notes, if you hear that. So let's get it going. So one of the main reasons that beginner artists, they'll fail at doing rough sketches is that they treat the rough draft as the final draft. They don't see the rough draft as like a process. They're not problem solving through it. They're kind of just going right into the final drawing rather than actually doing a full rough sketch. So what does that kind of look like? There's like a tendency to kind of overwork the rough lines, stressing over the clean lines before you even have this blueprint down. You want to just keep in mind that it doesn't matter how like beautiful this rough drawing is, it's going to eventually get erased, or it's going to disappear eventually. And it's more so digital than traditional, because sometimes in traditional you're building off of that sketch, you know, but in digital drawing especially, a lot of the times this rough sketch just completely disappears at the end. So you want to utilize this rough sketch in a way to where it helps you build out the final pieces of your drawing. This is the new mindset. You want to have this new mindset of this rough sketch is a disposable map. It's like a blueprint of your drawing of how everything is going to go. It does not need to look pretty or clean or whatever. The only job is to figure out the proportions and the positions and what the composition is, and just generally like what the construction is, especially if you're drawing people. How is the anatomy? Is everything looking good? Generally, in terms of placement and proportions. And you know, there's different types of rough sketches. There's like the mannequin that I talk about all the time, and there's some other ones like you can do like silhouette sketching where you're using like the lasso tool and putting stuff in. There's also the stick figures where you're doing like that line of action kind of thing, but then I would probably build on top of that with more gesture lines and stuff like that. The drawings that I have here is mainly just heads, is mainly just like a portrait rather than a full body, but you kind of get the idea. Like you apply the things for the head versus the full body. So like the proportional landmarks are the main things that you want to focus on. Proportional landmarks are things like joint placement, hips, like the bony landmarks of the human body. And I'm focusing on the human body because I like drawing people rather than environments. So go find an environment artist if you want environments. So in order for like people to draw faces, you want to be able to accurately landmark the classic human ratios so that things look human. Everyone is a little bit different, of course, but there is a human ratio or balance that we don't want to break or push too far. Otherwise, it starts looking alien or it starts looking different and no longer human. So for me, my landmarks, so if we're looking at the head, landmarks for me would be the zygomatic bone, which is the bone that goes from like the ear curving across your cheek down to your chin. The chin placement, the eye placement, the brow is a really big one to have. It helps figure out where the eyes are. Learn the skull. The skull is really important. For the full body, if you want to do the full body, acromion process, which is in the shoulder where your clavicles attach to your deltoid area, they like stretch out. There's a bone that sticks out there. Your hips, your legs, your elbows, right? Those are all areas where the bones are exposed or subcutaneous. They're directly under the skin. So you want to have those placements down. And in terms of proportion, there's like torso to leg. I just generally follow that from the bottom, from the base of your hips, your crotch, up to the top of your head is the same distance from your crotch down to the bottom of your legs. That's like the halfway point. And I just kind of have that, and then depending on the character or whatever, I'll like size stuff up here and there. But that kind of like specific stuff, I find that learning ratios like 1.5/2 or whatever, That stuff does not matter. Like, it never clicked for me. I didn't care. The way you get good at this is by copying other people's drawings or copying from real life and just measuring it yourself. And then you end up developing an intuitive sense for the idea. But bringing this all the way back to the rough sketching. So how does all of this apply to rough sketching? When you're sketching, you can be as nasty, as grotesque, as messy as you want it to be. But the one thing that you have to be clear on, be locked in on, is those joints, those bony landmarks. Like, your arm can be like whatever noodles or something, but you should know where that shoulder starts, where does it connect to the elbow, and then where does it connect to the wrist. You want to have that boom, boom, boom tag locked in. For the face, you want to have, where is that brow line exactly, where is the chin, where is the mandible, right? Or thinking about like, where is the zygomatic arch, where does that fit, right? Where are the eye sockets, where does the face turn, where does the neck connect, things like that. You just want to have all of those kind of locked in, and then everything else around it can be a little bit more rough and sketchy. The other thing to keep in mind when you're sketching, and you're sketching like people, faces, bodies, whatever, is just keeping track of, is your reference, is the perspective too difficult? And this isn't a perspective lesson. You can always practice. You always need to practice perspective. However, it's important to know that not everything wrong with your drawing has to do with anatomy. A lot of it, sometimes it can have something to do with the perspective. Your anatomy can be knowledgeable, you can know, but then you just don't know how to put it in perspective. So you want to, at times, just dial it back, go into an easier perspective where it's more like straight on or 3/4 view, rather than doing some, super intense perspective with a super intense pose, kind of compounding the difficulty level. And if you are compounding those difficulty levels, right, and we're tying it all the way back to sketching, you need to spend a lot more time on sketches. You sketch through different passes. So you can, first pass of the sketch would be just a rough layout, finding the composition, figuring out what direction the character is facing, right? What general pose is there, and then you lightly erase the whole thing, or like decrease the opacity, or do whatever it is, bring it back, and then you go back through a second pass where you try to make the figure more solid by adding in more 3D forms. And then you erase all of that again, and then you start to add in the next layer where you maybe add in some of the main anatomy, and then you start adding in fixing the perspective, and then you start adding in like the hair design or something like that. You want to do things in passes and just keep erasing, so that by the time you're a few passes in, that very first sketch where you're just, scribbling in some gestural lines, those are all gone because you already have the more complete drawing over it. Just what are the benefits of sketching? When you're sketching, it's your time to figure out what it is that you want to do, and also figuring out what it is you're capable of doing. Like, many times when you're drawing and you're struggling and you don't know how to figure it out, your sketches will tell you all of that. If your sketch isn't looking good, right, that's a sign for you to possibly switch up the angle, switch up the pose, or keep the same pose but just move the camera to a different angle, and hopefully that pose will figure it out. But that's the whole point of sketching. Sketching makes it so that you can make these big decisions, figure out what you're able to do, what you're not able to do, and allow you to make these big changes and throw stuff out, change stuff without having to sink a lot of time into it by doing the cleaner stuff or by doing the rendering and all that. So that's my sketch soapbox.